Hello, I'm speaking about endometriosis today, and I just want to raise awareness, let people know what the disease is about. And I am a sufferer myself. Sometimes we're called endo warriors, endo sufferers. We call each other endo sisters if we suffer from the disease. And I want to talk about attending college or anything that you need to do that requires being in a certain place at a certain time and being present. Pretty much life. Um, your workplace, as well as your college environment, as well as anything you need to do. It can be very hard when you have endometriosis. There are times when you feel like you can't get out of bed. There are times when you're in so much pain that you feel like you're too dizzy and weak to drive a car, yet at the same time you're expected to be able to do all these things. When I enrolled in college, I did not know I had the disease. I had been trying to have a baby for a year and nothing was happening, so I thought, oh, I'll go to school now instead of waiting till the child was school age himself and then go. I had my associates and I figured I might as well go for my bachelor's and I might as well try it while I wasn't getting pregnant. Well, little did I know there were a lot of reasons why I wasn't getting pregnant, and endometriosis and polycystic ovarian syndrome were those reasons. So I have some other videos that explain a lot of that part of my history, and I am writing a book, so I'm not going to get into that part of it much during this video. I really want to talk to those who want to go to school. I'm going to use college as an example, but you can certainly apply this to anything in life that you're trying to do. If you want to go to school and you have this disease, you're going to have to be creative. Take independent studies if you can with your teachers once you've been in the school for a while, so that way you don't have to attend class on a regular basis and you can do your work when you feel well. That's the key, is finding that time that you actually feel well and that you can do your work. You may not be able to be at class every day at 9 o'clock because you may have a lot of challenges with your health, but maybe if you find an online class that you can take and you can work at your own pace, find classes that interest you and just try the best to get there. If there is a class that you have to attend in person and you must do that for your degree, just sign up for the class, talk to your teacher ahead of time, be very honest. A lot of times their syllabuses are set up so that if you miss more than a certain amount, you're kicked out of the class. Some teachers would make an exception in the case of an illness and say, okay, well, you have a reason. Others may say, no, this is my rule, and you need to find out if that person is willing to work with you. My advice would be is just to go to as many classes as you can, get ahead. When you're working in your class, if they're on chapter 3, I would always be on chapter 5. I'd always be a couple ahead, because then there are a few days are going to hit me where I can't get out of bed, where I can't move. And usually it's around that time of month when your period comes that you just can't do anything. And you know you can't. And you know it's going to happen. You know it's going to happen every month. Sometimes it would happen for weeks at a time. And sometimes it had no rhyme and reason. With endometriosis, I think there is a lot that really bases on our cycles. So then don't plan to do an oral presentation that week. If you have a choice, you kind of think about when your period is and plan everything around that. I know it sounds unfortunate to have to do that, but if you know that everybody's doing oral reports over the next week and a half, look at the days that are bad for you and try to get away from those. Try to, make sure that you plan it for the other days. Try to find that quiet time when you're not feeling sick. Do as much as you can and just keep plugging away. I never ever thought I'd make it through. And although I was very, very fortunate, I actually was pregnant during most part of my college career. And going through my in vitro was grueling, frightening at times. I went to class one day and all of a sudden I thought I was pregnant. I was told I was pregnant and I was bleeding like crazy. I was in the restroom right before a big test. I went to my teacher, probably pale as a ghost. I can't imagine. And I just told him exactly what was going on. It was awkward. It wasn't the kind of conversation I wanted to have with my professor, but I told him, and he said, would you like to take that test in a room by yourself? I can arrange that right now. And he did. He didn't have to do that. It was a wonderful thing he did. Whether or not another teacher would do the same thing, obviously everyone's different. But if I had just suffered in silence, gone in there and tried to take that test, I probably wouldn't have done so well. I didn't do that well on the test because I was stressed, but I did well enough to stay in the class and continue and redeem myself later. I think it's just a matter of not letting the fact that something might go wrong get in your way of going to school. Don't use having endometriosis as an excuse not to live your life if you have the choice otherwise. If you're not in a condition where you are so bad off that you can't do this, you need to just do it. Just do it. Another situation I had, I was pregnant, and actually the bleeding was nothing that I was experiencing at that time. It went away. I was pregnant, very far into my pregnancy. I was having a hard time parking my car and walking from class to the next class, then back to my car. So the college I was attending actually arranged for a special spot for me to park in. They got me a special permit, and it was something that was just so wonderful. And it doesn't sound like much, but it was basically, if I hadn't had that, I wouldn't have made it to as many classes, wouldn't have been able to sit in them for as long, and it was probably the determining factor of me succeeding, is just having people at the college that I could count on. My advisor just made a few phone calls. She's wonderful. She said, hey, why should you have to suffer if you don't have to? Let's see what we can do for you. I think the idea when you have this disease, and being pregnant, I didn't have endometriosis pain, but it was a high-risk pregnancy because of my age and my health condition, I suppose. So what I'm saying is if you're having trouble with endometriosis, maybe you can find a way to, go to class and still, further your education and do things. During my pregnancy, I had a hard time walking from class to class. So a lot of times I'd show up 20 minutes late to my second class because I used to have to sit down and catch my breath and wait and then go. And I still made it. Now, that has nothing, again, to do with the endometriosis. It has to do with being pregnant. But if you think about the fact that, if they had been my endometriosis causing that problem, that teacher would have been just as understanding because you would have explained to them ahead of time that you had the problem. You would have calmed as much as you could do with the school. And they can tell if you're a serious student or if you're just giving them stories. So certainly, in a case where you are telling the truth, I believe that most teachers tend to believe you, or you could certainly show the medical documentation. If they didn't, I'd offered that in many cases when I had to miss important field trips and things, and teachers just said, no, that's okay. But some teachers may need that, and certainly teachers that don't know you. I was in a little smaller learning environment than some of you might be. But I just want to make sure that anyone who has endometriosis or that suffers from any chronic illness doesn't let it get them down. I don't want to see someone suffering, someone not doing what they want to do and following their dreams and saying, oh, well, if only, I didn't have this, I could do that, because you probably could just try doing it anyway, even if you can't do it perfect. I like to do everything perfect. I had to admit, sometimes it can't be perfect. Sometimes I can't be in class. Sometimes I have to lose points for missing so many classes, but at least I made enough of them to get through. Other semesters I was great and hardly missed anything, and just depended on how my health was at that time. I suffered for so long before I really understood what was happening to me. I remember calling one of my teachers because my uterus and my bowel were attached from the endometriosis. I didn't know quite what was going on, but I couldn't control my bowels, to put it nicely. So on the way to school one day, I was unable to control things, and I had to go back home. I was a mess when I got home because, literally and figuratively, right? I was a mess. I felt like I couldn't go back there. What if it happened again? It just happened. What if it happens again? I need to give this some time. So I couldn't go to class. So I called my teacher. I explained it to her honestly, and, she understood. Another time I had a teacher that would say, don't come in my class if you're late. You'll be marked absent, and don't even bother walking through the door. I thought, oh boy, that's going to be wonderful for me who can't stay out of the bathroom. Well, one morning, of course, that did happen. I couldn't stay out of the bathroom. I was in the bathroom quite a while. I was about a half hour, 20 minutes late for class. So I just peeked my head in the door and just looked through it. I looked through the glass. And she just motioned me to come in, and I said, Oh, thank goodness. And I explained to her after class because I felt like I had to give her those details. And again, it is very uncomfortable to do, yet it kind of humanizes you and makes them realize that you're doing things the best you can for what you've been given in life. So she said, no, I just say that because I don't like people coming in that way. Now, I was someone that had always been on time, always done my work. She knew me. I think you just have to establish that reputation ahead of time sometimes, and it's kind of hard when you're suffering from things, but I want people to feel motivated to do what they want to do, and thank you very much for listening to my presentation. Take care.